Jaden Daniels' growth this season isn't just about his athletic ability, it's about his mindset. And as his confidence and control over the game grows, so does his potential for leading an upset win in the wild card round of the NFL playoffs. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, David Harrison, covering the Washington Commanders for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. You can also find me helping out with WUSA9.com's local coverage of the team this season. And I'm here with you every Monday through Friday. I greatly appreciate you coming through for today's episode. Every dayers, if you're out there and you're coming through every day, I greatly appreciate you coming through every single day. Locked On Commanders is your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders. And if you haven't already, you can subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this episode, in which we're going to talk about how the Washington Commanders cover in the wild card round. We're going to talk about the importance of containing Buccaneers rookie running back Bucky Irving, and we're going to talk about the importance of letting Jayden Daniels take control. And this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the promo code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL, to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5. Jayden Daniels' growth this season is certainly impressive physically, but it's more about how he's grown mentally, and his confidence and control over the game is growing. And as it grows, the likelihood that the Washington Commanders could pull off a wild card upset this weekend has grown with it. And that is our first must do. That leads us into our first must do, I should say, for this wild card round. The Washington Commanders visiting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday night. Every crossover Thursday, just like we do all season long, we go through three things that the Washington Commanders must do in order to win the upcoming game. And of course, it's win or go home. It's one and done. Doesn't matter what your record was. Doesn't matter how many wins you had in the regular season. If you don't go 1-0 this season, your season is over. And the first thing that the Washington Commanders have to do on Sunday night is let Jayden loose. And that's not to say that they've been really holding him back in the first place. And especially back in week one, the last time the Washington Commanders faced the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they weren't holding him back. In fact, some people actually wanted them to hold him back. They wanted to force him to stay in the pocket. Don't take off and run so much. Don't overlook open routes instead of, taking off and running out of the pocket. But Cliff Kingsbury basically came out and said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let him play his game. He's going to grow into it as he needs to, and we're going to let him be himself. And I thought it was a brilliant move then. I think it's a brilliant move now. And I think that it has turned out and produced dividends beyond, I think, what pretty much anybody really expected this season. However, taking advantage of his growth mentally this week in the rematch against Tampa Bay Buccaneers will allow him to take over the game like we've seen him do in recent weeks, usually late in the game, kind of the way that Marcus Mariota did in the second half against the Dallas Cowboys. We've seen Jayden Daniels do some of the same thing, but I'm saying let him do that early on, and really not let him, because again, nobody's keeping him from doing it, but really kind of empower him to do it. As the mental part of his game has grown, we have seen Jayden Daniels' ability to put on the cape from time to time, put the team on his back, at least offensively, and say, I'm going to will us to a victory, grow and grow. And on that mentality, Jayden said, quote, going back and watching the film, you can see you just learn a lot more as the season goes by, end quote. And at the end of the day, it's still football. It's still going to be a challenge to go up and compete against those guys once again, end quote. So Jayden talked about the importance of looking back at his previous experience against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, recognizing how he has grown and realizing how he's grown so much in this game. But then again, keeping the main thing, man. It's football. You know what I mean? It's something that he's always had fun doing, something that he's surely been good at doing. Dan Quinn, talking this week about Jayden's mentality, said, quote, there's an X factor that he has, and it's compartmentalizing, end quote. Jayden's ability to take information, take exposures, take reps, and really take what's important from it and leave the rest of it behind. Cliff Kingsbury on Jayden Daniels added to that, said, quote, I think that's probably one of his strongest traits, is that he can process it really quickly and be on to the next play, end quote. Cliff also said it's hard for an established player to do that sometimes, let alone a rookie. And I think that the presence of Marcus Mariota, the veteran quarterback who's been the number 2 overall pick, been the young Heisman quarterback who's been brought in to save a franchise, understanding what Jayden is going through, has really helped him to be able to do that as well. Jayden said, quote, that's who I am. You got to learn to not let the bad plays stack up on top of bad plays. If you have a bad play, you move on to the next play, and you can't really focus on anything that's in the past. You got to worry about the present, be where your feet are, end quote. And, look, be where your feet are has become one of those cliches that we hear more and more, specifically from this generation of coaches, this generation of players. And a lot of guys say it, but there's an equal amount of guys who say it just aren't actually about that and don't actually have the mentality to be able to do that. And I think Jayden has proven through any interception or through any mistake, he has been able to do that. You go back not that long ago through an interception on what could have been essentially a game-ending drive, game-ending mistake by him against Philadelphia Eagles, but because of Devontae Smith making a bigger mental mistake on that next possession, gives them an opportunity. The Washington Commanders and Jayden Daniels come right back down the field and end up scoring what is a game-winning touchdown on the pass to Jamison Crowder. So that's exactly a prime example of Jayden Daniels being able to take the moment, understand what it means, understand what's important, leave the rest out of it, come back and perform at your top level. In week 1 against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the pure rookie quarterback, Jayden Daniels, 17 for 21 completions, 184 yards passing, 16 carries, 88 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. I mean, a very solid rookie debut, to be quite honest with you. But a lot of those runs were not designed runs. A lot of those runs were from Jayden Daniels just having to adjust to the speed of the game and understanding that, look, part of my brain is just not going to process this as quickly as I wanted to as a passer. So I'm going to use my legs. I'm going to use my athletic ability and try to make plays for my team. When it comes to designed runs this season, Jayden Daniels is second in the NFL with 56 carries through designed runs, and his 301 yards are third most. He's averaging 5 yards per designed run. Now on scrambles, his yards per carry jumps to 8 yards per carry. He's first in attempts through scrambles by a long, long distance. Now, according to Sports Info Solutions, 7 of Jayden's 16 carries in week 1 came via scramble. It's almost 50%, gaining 77 yards on those scrambles. Meanwhile, he only gained 11 yards on his 9 designed runs in week 1. So it just really kind of shows you that while Jayden's athletic ability has always been there and has always been dangerous, he's most dangerous when he's deciding to run because of what the defense is showing him. And again, that just shows that mental ability and how important that can be. So as weird as it might sound, calling more passes with your rookie quarterback and trusting him to make the right decisions in the playoffs might be the best way to go if you're the Washington Commanders. It also empowers him to take control of the game sooner, and that's what I'd like to see. So in the second halves of games this season, Jayden Daniels leads all quarterbacks with 35 scrambles and averages 7.7 yards per carry. Now, in the first halves of games this year, that average drops nearly a full yard when it comes to scrambling. From what I see, the reason you have that drop in the yardage is because he's not trying to scramble as quickly as he does in the second half. In the first half, he's trying to stay patient. He's trying to wait for things to develop. He's trying to wait to find an avenue to throw against the defense. And I get it. I totally appreciate it. You want to have that thing happen. But at the end of the day, man, I think what's most important for the Washington Commanders to get an upset win in this wild card round is Jayden Daniels. Go be the best Jayden Daniels you can be. Don't hold yourself back, essentially, trying to wait for receivers to get open or for reads to come there. If the read is not there, we've kind of talked about this before. Every day, as you've heard me say this before, snap, drop, hitch, run, right? That third hitch, you're running, you're taking off. We're not hitching again, standing, rolling, trying to get. No, we're running. Now, if in the process of getting ready to run, you see a route come open, by all means, target it, hit it, do what you got to do. But that's what we see in the second half more so is that drop, hitch, run. In the first half, we see drop, hitch, stand there, maybe hitch some more, maybe roll, maybe drift. I want to see a little bit more decisiveness and a little bit more willingness from Jayden to take over the game as an athlete, as more than he does in the first half usually. Now, add that to the fact that over the last 5 weeks, they've allowed just 9 points in the second half of games. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, the Commanders would be wise to do as many things as they can in the first half, allow Jayden Daniels, and again, I'm not saying allow as in they're restricting him, but encourage him maybe is a better word. Jayden, don't hold yourself back as much in the first half because this Buccaneers defense has been very, very good at adjusting to what offenses are trying to do in the first half and coming out and not totally shutting them down, but certainly stifling them a little bit. Now, that's not to say he shouldn't go through his progressions. Again, 1 read, 2 reads, and then you're either running or check down. And we know that Jayden Daniels doesn't really do check downs too much. So maybe you install a little bit more check down coming into this game. The Buccaneers have given up 44 rushing yards to quarterbacks 3 times this year. And the only time they did that in one came against the Washington Commanders in week 1. Now, even in that, the Buccaneers have allowed 20 or more points in each of those games. Now, remember, Cade York missed 2 field goals when these two teams met. So really, the Commanders were in position to score 26 points meaning that the Buccaneers have allowed the ability to score at least 26 points in every game. They've given up 44 yards rushing to opposing quarterbacks, something they did just 5 times in all of their other games combined. So despite having a relatively down year for Todd Bowles' defense, teams are still most effective against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when they can get some help from their quarterback in the run game. So steer into it. You've got the quarterback for it. And I think it's a situation to go ahead and steer into it. Now, that's before you enter in the passing possibilities, which only get better the more that Jayden Daniels punishes the Bucs defense on the ground, forces them to come closer, forces those safeties to stay. Maybe the cornerbacks will bite on a double move a little bit more, opens up things deep downfield. So that's the number one must do. Get Jayden Daniels doing Jayden Daniels things earlier. Don't have him wait until the second half. From breaking tackles and leading rookies in all-purpose yards to become a dual threat in the passing game, Tampa Bay Buccaneers rookie Bucky Irving is a rising star, and stopping him could be the key to stalling the Bucs offense this weekend. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you in part by TurboTax. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Are you tired of endless waiting, wondering, and worrying about your taxes? Well, now that's a thing of the past. You see, taxes don't need to be complicated or stressful. TurboTax is here to change the game by matching you with a TurboTax expert who can get to work on your return right away. No more waiting for answers. No more wondering if you're missing out on deductions, whether you've got one form or 20. TurboTax experts give your taxes their undivided attention. While you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on what really matters, you won't have to lift a finger, but you'll get the peace of mind knowing that your taxes are being handled by the pros. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your expert who's ready to take your taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders is also brought to you in part by Prize Picks, and it's NFL playoff time. And if you're like me, you want to make the most of these final weeks of football action. That is where Prize Picks comes in. If you love football and you want a chance to win real money while watching the games, Prize Picks is the place for you. It's the best way to turn your sports opinions into cash and daily fantasy player projections. With Prize Picks, you simply pick more or less on player stats like total passing yards or rushing touchdowns, and you get a shot of up to 1,000 times your money. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds, and whether you're looking for a flex play to boost your payout or you want to cash out quickly, Prize Picks has got you covered. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, it's clear that people are loving this platform. I've been doing it for a while. This week, I am eyeing Commanders quarterback Jayden Daniels for more than 50.5 rushing yards, Buccaneers running back Bucky Irving for more than half a touchdown, and Eagles running back Saquon Barkley for more than 102.5 rushing yards against the Green Bay Packers this weekend. Now, here's a special offer for Locked On listeners. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Prize Picks. Run your game. From breaking tackles and leading all rookies in all-purpose yards to becoming a dual threat in the passing game, Tampa Bay Buccaneers rookie running back Bucky Irving is a rising star, and stopping him is going to be a key for stalling the Bucs offense this weekend for the Washington Commanders defense. We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Commanders. If you want to get even more out of the Locked On Commanders podcast, sign up to be an insider today at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. From there, not only are you going to receive inside information, direct text from me during press conferences, practices, games, in between, all that stuff, you're also going to get exclusive access to our insider-only Zoom conferences, which I think we've hit a pretty good stride doing them pregame and also doing them pregame every single weekend. And you're also going to have the opportunity to talk to me, share your thoughts, your questions, be part of our mailbags, influence the show by also helping out by handing out game balls, giving us your weekly X Factors, all of those things. It's a lot of fun. So come check it out. Become an insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders to try it out for free for the first 2 weeks. Second thing that the Washington Commanders must do this weekend to get a win in Tampa, Florida, stop Bucky Irving. And I think I probably shouldn't even say stop. I should say contain, minimize, right? Mitigate, right? Risk mitigation. Bucky Irving is going to do something. He's going to get some yards. He's probably going to have an explosive run or two, 10-yard gain or so here and there. It's bound to happen because this is the NFL and both sides of the ball have talented players. But you have to stop him from having a major impact on the game. Bucky Irving in case you don't know, led all rookies in all-purpose yards this season. He had 8 carries this season of 20 yards or more. He was the top running back in the National Football League in broken tackles, while rating as PFF's most elusive running back in the league this season. Again, that's most broken tackles of all running backs. That's not rookie running backs, all running backs. Touched the ball just 11 times against the Washington Commanders in week 1, playing behind Rachaad White, but he still led the Buccaneers in rushing that game. And now he has become the Buccaneers, call it number 1 running back. You're still going to get plenty of Rachaad White, but Bucky Irving certainly has become that top guy in the Tampa backfield. Has more yards after contact than Derrick Henry has this season. So Bucky Irving, very, very impressive rookie season, but he's also effective in the passing game. So Rachaad White is actually their quote-unquote receiving back. He's 8th in the NFL among running backs in receiving yards, all NFL. Bucky Irving is 9th, and he's only trailing Rachaad White by 1 yard, despite the fact that he has 4 fewer receptions. So on a per reception basis, Bucky Irving has actually been more effective there than Rachaad White has. So as you'd imagine, his yards per reception is higher, right? 8.3 yards per reception, 7th best among running backs with 52 or more targets this season. Now, I went back and looked at the tape, and I think one of the most important players in trying to contain Bucky Irving this season or this weekend is going to be safety Quan Martin, because he played that role pretty well in the first game. He had multiple times where he hit a fit. There was one 3rd down play where he just came screaming through a run fit. And I mean, he laid the wood on Bucky Irving. Now, Bucky Irving got up, bounced back, did his thing, but he laid the lumber on. There was also another play where Quan Martin is in the open field. He's the last dude. Like, if Bucky Irving can get past Quan Martin, it's a touchdown. And Quan Martin makes an amazing middle of the field, open field tackle. I talked to Quan Martin about that tackle on Thursday, and I told him, look, bro, I can't make an open field tackle on many people these days, but even with my lack of ability, like, I couldn't open field tackle a Gatorade cooler on most days, I think. But even with that fact, I've watched enough games, I've watched enough tape to know that open field tackle, impressive work. Quan Martin, very confident in his ability to help out against Bucky Irving, and they're going to need it because Bucky Irving has certainly proven himself to be a guy that can damage an opposing defense. Everybody's going to focus on Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, as they should, but Bucky Irving is certainly a guy that needs to be paid attention to. But also, rookie wide receiver Jalen McMillan is going to be on the same field as well. He's become a much bigger part of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. 7 touchdowns in the last 5 games. That is quite an explosion of production from that rookie wide receiver out of Washington, who's going to be seeing Mikey Sanderstill. Washington Huskies and Michigan Wolverines face off in the national championship right around this time last year. They're going to see each other here this year. And again, postseason glory is on the line. So watch out for Jalen McMillan as well as a little bit of a bonus right there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. Final thing that the Washington Commanders must do in order to get a win against Tampa Bay Buccaneers is win on first down. In fact, it might be more important than 3rd down, and we're referring offensively. Obviously, you'd love to win on first down defensively too, but specifically here, we're going to talk about the offense. So again, successful plays, 40% of yards to gain on first down, 60% of yards to gain on second down, 100% of yards to gain on 3rd and or 4th down are considered successful plays. The Washington Commanders are averaging 4.37 yards per carry on 1st and 10 plays this season. So that is averaging a successful play on 1st and 10 when running the ball. And they have the 12th most rushing yards on 1st and 10 downs this season in the National Football League. Now they're averaging 7.2 yards per pass on 1st and 10s, 15th most passing yards, and they also have the 4th most scramble yards on 1st and 10s this season. So they're actually doing pretty well, but we have seen runs, we've seen streaks, and we've seen games where they just come out and for whatever reason, they don't have that much success on those first downs. And it leads to slow starts, which leads to low scoring outputs. 3 points against the Dallas Cowboys in the first half and things like that. However, not only are we seeing a run, and essentially it's not really give or take. It's either they're really good on first down or they're really bad on first down, but also they set themselves back here and there. We talked about penalties just a couple weeks ago. That's obviously not something that's ever going to go away as a concern, but the averages after a penalty are incredibly, incredibly troubling. When you talk about this team being in 1st and 11 or more, so there's been a penalty of some sort setting them back, they're averaging 0.67 yards per carry and 0.17 yards per pass. Those are amazingly terrible numbers when this team is facing more than 1st and 10 on a first down. So winning first down also means not doing something to make it longer than necessary and finding a way to talk about resiliency to get over it if you do set yourself back and bounce back. Commanders offense is converting better on 3rd downs overall than they did in week 1. Week 1, 25% overall for the season, 45.6%. That's 6th best in the National Football League. But when we go back to that week 1 matchup 5 of the Commanders' 8 third downs they had in week 1 were 3rd and 6 or longer, which means you're not being successful on 1st and 2nd down, either one or both of those downs. And if you can get that 4 yards on 1st down, make it 2nd and 6 instead of looking at 3rd and 6, then you have a much better shot of getting a 3rd and 4 even, or a 3rd and 2, whatever it is. And even in week 1, Washington converted the majority of its 3rd down plays when they needed 5 yards or less. So you just need to get into that 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4 window. And there was 1 3rd and 1 that was failed against Tampa Bay in week 1, but they converted the 4th down, as we've seen the Commanders do time and time again. Also, we're going to watch out for linebacker Frankie Louvu. His versatility and knack for disrupting plays could be the difference maker for the Commanders' defense. And with a high-scoring shootout expected, I'm taking Washington and cover the spread in a wild card upset. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Commanders is brought to you in part by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are simply better with FanDuel, because right now, new customers of FanDuel, you can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need to make your live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. Right now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 3-point favorites at home to beat the Washington Commanders. The over-under on total points scored is sitting at 50.5. So we are expecting a shootout. So whatever you think is going to happen this weekend, put your opinions to work for you by going to FanDuel.com today to join, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. We're going to be watching out for Frankie Louvu this weekend. His versatility, knack for disrupting plays could be the difference maker when it comes to the Washington Commanders defense containing Bucky Irving, getting off the field, getting the offense even more repetitions, and looking at a high-scoring shootout. I am taking Washington to cover the spread, those 3 points. My non-quarterback X factor is that linebacker, Frankie Louvu. I talked to him ahead of the Dallas Cowboys game about the importance of defending sideline to sideline, being disciplined on those rollouts by Trey Lance. Look, Baker Mayfield, if you don't remember, he's not the super mobile quarterback that Lamar Jackson is, Jayden Daniels is, but he is a pest. That's the best way I can put it in the backfield. He's a pesky guy to try to bring down. Joey Jr. on Thursday said the problem is you can't tackle him like a quarterback. You have to tackle him like a running back. If you come after him, try to tackle him as a quarterback, you're going to have problems. I expect Frankie Louvu to kind of lead the charge towards this team being more aggressive in getting after Baker Mayfield, but also being smarter in pursuit, not giving up some of those backside leaks that we saw against the Dallas Cowboys last week. Those types of things, especially against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, are really, really going to be drive killers. So I expect Frankie Louvu to have a big game. Again, I'm not telling you that, in your daily fantasy, if you have an individual defensive player, that Frankie's going to have 4 sacks in this game. But I just think that in his ability to contain, collapse, close, hopefully get some stats, maybe a sacker here and there, maybe an interception that he doesn't drop, things like that, certainly could impact the stat box. But even if he doesn't impact the stat sheet, the way that he plays the game intellectually, I think is going to have a big impact in this game. Our insider non-quarterback X factor, we have got a 2-way tie between the 2 guys that this team has been missing the most. Center Tyler Biadasz, cornerback Marshon Lattimore, and I'm not at all surprised. We have been talking about him on these 2 guys on the show. Insiders, we've been talking about them a lot via text messages. We're asking a lot of questions in press conferences. They're the first 2 guys I'm looking for on the practice field when we go out there on the practice field. There's a reason for it. This offensive line just simply looks better when Tyler Biadasz is out there, and this secondary, this defense plays better when Marshon Lattimore is out there. Frankie Louvu also got a lot of love, came in 3rd place, but it was Tyler Biadasz, Marshon Lattimore coming in, running away with the votes. Austin Eckler got a little bit of love. Zach Ertz, Terry McLaurin. John Allen got 1 vote, although I think it might have been a joke vote because that insider likes to joke a little bit with his votes. Mikey Sainer still got some love. Bobby Wagner also got some love. Insider predictions, everybody's going Washington. And I'll tell you guys, I was on the Hear the Cannons podcast, the BucksGameDay.com Sports Illustrated podcast, and it was me and it was Bucks Game Day editor River Wells. We were the guests. Colin Hallboom was the host, as he always is. And we got to the predictions part of it. And I will tell you, I'm a little bit surprised, but River Wells, the editor of BucksGameDay.com, predicted the Washington Commanders to win. I, too, am predicting the Washington Commanders to win. And all of the insiders are predicting the Washington Commanders to win. And I'm not saying that it's a problem when everybody's predicting the Washington Commanders to win, but we'll see what happens. Averaging out the insider score predictions, we've got Commanders 29, Tampa Bay Buccaneers 25. I don't really know how that happens, but that's the averages. That's the way the law of averages work. My predictions on the year, I'm 12-5 straight up, 11-6 against the spread. Commanders, again, underdogs by 3 points in this game. Over-under is set to 50.5 total points scored. I am predicting the Washington Commanders to win by a score of 31-27. So insiders and I are fairly close in our projections. I'm actually 2 points higher in both team scores than the average out for the insiders. Total points scored in my prediction is 58, which means we're taking the over on the total points scored. And that is going to wrap up our final episode before the wild card game. The next time we talk will be coming after the wild card game from Raymond James Stadium, hopefully talking about this season getting extended a little bit longer because, guys, I don't know about you, but I'm not ready for it to come to an end. Either way, we will have another episode coming up Sunday night, Monday morning, et cetera, et cetera. So in the meantime, if you've got questions or comments, all you got to do is text me. To do that, all you got to do is become a Locked On Commanders insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders today to become an insider for your next listen. Check out Locked On NFL in the morning. It is Tyler Rowland, the madman, kicking you off with a double shot of NFL espresso. In the afternoon, it's Tony Wiggins coming through for some real barbershop talk on Locked On NFL. If you go to the Wednesday episode with Tony Wiggins, I may or may not have gone in there and said, look, don't be surprised if the Las Vegas Raiders decide to about face and fire Tom Telesco. It's exactly what they did a little bit later. So I'm not saying I'm always right, but I'm just saying I'm right sometimes. It's the all-new Locked On NFL, and it is twice per day. As always, thank you so much for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day, every day, every dayers. Thank you for coming through on a regular basis like you do. And until we speak again, if you're out and about, please be safe, be kind, and I'll see you right back here next time for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.